This is Ron Peters.
I'm Sam Long.
And I'm John Nugent.
Welcome to the After Class Podcast.
Because the best conversations happen
After class.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of the After Class Podcast. We're glad to have you along. Aloha from Hawaii.
Welcome back.
Thank you. For those who don't know, I just got back from a couple-week trip in Hawaii with the whole Long clan. And we spent a couple weeks there on 3 different islands. It was first time to Hawaii. It was a beautiful place. I don't know how it exists in the world, but it does. And, I don't know why everyone doesn't move there. Probably because there's not that much space for everyone to live there.
It would cause the islands to sink.
Yeah, but it was a pretty awesome trip. I know you two both have been. So
all of us have been there. Todd, he's been there. So,
Although Todd's no longer with us.
well,
I know, but I wanted...
Again, he's alive. Just not on this
to be clear.
episode.
He is still around.
Oh, wow.
You want to pay a little homage to him, but...
Yeah.
No,
So, yeah.
He had a good run.
He did. 12 quality episodes.
Yeah.
But we couldn't get enough votes to keep him on the podcast.
Wow. I don't think we took a vote. But
I'm just
Something
kidding.
like that.
Just kidding. So you'd give Hawaii overall the thumbs up.
Oh, for sure. Beautiful place. And I was talking to the guys ahead of time, but like Maui, like the weather that I experienced, which may not be regular, but was perfect for me. Like I always say, I want to live between 50 and 80 degrees. Like that's perfect weather for me. There was like 60 to 85, which is, on the fringe end, but still like, and if you can have the nights where the windows are open and you're still comfortable, like that's it. That's for me.
Absolutely.
And so, and you're not like dying. What I love was, I think a local said that when it rains, it's a blessing. And that's exactly how I felt. Like you're getting hot. You're just like, oh, it's hot. And all of a sudden it sprinkles and spritzles a little bit and cools you off and evaporates. Like, oh, I'm fine. And it's a little blessing from God, so you can get through the day. So, stuff like that. And, I go to places, I love to eat their food. And so I'm eating whatever they have. So fish, coconuts, fruit, fresh fruit, whatever. Whatever they're offering, I'm trying. So I had a lot of different stuff that I really enjoyed.
So a lot of seafood then. Because that is big in their culture.
Yes,
Seafood
and I had
is big.
a lot of different fish I've never heard of, so that was cool. So, yeah. I'll tell you the weirdest thing, though. Like, hey, we have Maine lobster. Cool.
What?
Like, I'm good.
I don't think I saw that when I was there.
I've had that before, and it's from Maine, so I think I'll pass. But anyway.
Maine lobster.
Yeah, there were a lot, like fancy restaurants are like, we have Maine lobster. Like, I don't want that. I want what you catch out of the ocean today. So.
And there are restaurants who literally will catch it that day, bring it in, and that's what you
Well, I
have for
had
dinner.
fish and chips catch of the day.
Yeah.
Like, they caught it in the morning, and they fried it up for me in the evening. Like, thank you.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So, great time for me.
Glad it was a good time for you.
Thank you.
I'm getting ready to start my sabbatical, so this will drop on Monday. So Tuesday is day 1 of my sabbatical. Looking forward to it. I'm not going to start writing right away, but I have been thinking a lot about it and kind of organizing my thoughts. But we're heading up north right at the beginning of July. We've got about a week and a half vacation up in the UP, as we do every year. So I'll do that first, and then when we get back, I'm going to start seriously making plans to get I want to say start my book because I've been writing it for some time, but have a plan in place to knock this thing out. So I'm looking forward to that. It'll be good.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm looking forward to not reading it, by the way, just to be clear.
That's good.
Just kidding.
Yeah, I'm good
I'm
with that.
kidding.
I got readers, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what have I been doing the last 2 weeks?
Yard work?
A lot of yard work.
You look tan. As
Yeah.
tan as I am, and I've been in Hawaii.
A lot of yard work. I recognize this year that last summer, because of my daughter's surgery and us caring for our grandchild and them moving in with us and us taking care of them and things being really busy here, I did not do my normal, all the things I've been neglecting all year get done during the summer. So they just rolled forward to the next year.
2 years worth. Nice.
And so I've had this massive list of things that must be done. So I've been doing a lot of those. Yesterday was kind of a fun day. It was my birthday, and it was also the perfect day. I've talked about this on the air before. It's a family tradition going back 25 plus years where our 3 kids and now their significant others plan from their perspective the perfect day, and Beth and I execute it. And that was a lot of fun. But the cool thing, the story that came out of this is some of the guys have gotten into golf lately, and they're just kind of dipping their toes in there. And they thought it'd be cool if we had like husband-wife teams play against each other, where the guys do the driving and the irons, and the ladies do all the green work, all the putting.
Okay.
And it's tricky on the perfect day. Like there's gonna be winners and losers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But the finish was pretty remarkable. each one of us, every single team got 61.
Amazing.
All four
Amazing.
teams landed at 61.
That's
and like
remarkable.
Yeah,
I
there you go.
started really strong. I probably have the most experience of the group
Yeah,
playing,
for sure.
but I've been doing a lot less than them
Yes.
in recent years. But the last hole was the worst hole I've ever played in my life, and I got a 10.
Duff.
Yeah,
And if
duff.
I didn't like totally screw that hole, we wouldn't have gotten all 61. So it was the perfect score for us
Wow.
all to kind of be equally bad together.
And so nobody felt.
Everyone's a winner.
Yeah.
Everyone's a loser. It's all
Everybody
good.
got a participation medal or trophy. or
Yeah,
whatever
I
they-
played 9 with one of your son-in-laws the other day. He's better, but he's not good.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was a good time.
Sounds like it.
Also, we have a big renovation project happening at the school. Basically, we're gutting the student mall and the library and doing a massive building project. And so I've been doing a lot of work on that, meetings about that. And a lot of the faculty have been like going through the library collections. What books can we get rid of? Which ones should we keep? And they're being all now all the books are now out of our library. And I only did a very fraction of that. I was just involved in helping plan logistics and stuff like that. But while I was, there's a reason I'm telling the story. While I was going through the shelves, just kind of reviewing the books that have been selected for deselection, just to make sure, no diamonds in the rough get thrown away. I noticed this book about God and humor. And I thought that would be an interesting
Yeah,
podcast
for sure.
series. And so we are going to do a series. We're starting a new series called The Bible Can Sometimes Be Funny or something like that.
Yeah, you're like, you named it? I didn't know we had a
I
name
was
for
gonna say,
it.
yeah, I didn't know we were
Well,
working on
Darren's ultimately going to name this, right? Or is that are you doing that now?
I'm
or is
hoping
it-
to give it back to him soon.
Okay.
it. Okay, yeah.
But we're not really talking about God being funny, but we're talking about the Bible can be really funny.
Yeah.
And
Without a doubt.
sometimes it's trying to be funny in the original language, right? And the original author. And sometimes it's just funny because things hit us today
Right.
differently than the author would have meant it. And so we just kind of like did some crowdsourcing on Facebook, and we've kind of chipped in and asked AI and just come up with a list of passages
list.
that we think are funny for various reasons, and that our readers find funny. There's
Hopefully.
some in here that, and I didn't distinguish who contributed what passage. So
We'll call you up.
if you're an avid listener, your passage is probably on here, except for the ones that I just couldn't see how they could possibly be funny.
Right.
That didn't make it, or they were funny, but the humor was a little dark,
ribald.
for our audience, and
Yeah.
Well, I think it's
And
funny. Like when I go through OT survey, I say this is funny, and I say it, and they look at me blankly, like, okay, well, maybe not like haha, like Will Ferrell funny, but
Right.
I mean, there's humor here that they just don't even pick up on.
yeah.
Well, and some of the dark humor ones I put in there, knowing we probably would not put those on the air, but I'm like, yeah, to me this is really hilarious.
Of course, Ron goes dark early.
I agree. Can't deny that. I like the dark humor stuff.
We'll see how it is after your sabbatical. Maybe less dark humor.
We'll find out.
So yeah, our game plan is just we have a giant list, a bunch from the Old Testament, a bunch from New Testament. We're gonna read them together and talk about what makes them funny, and then move on to the next one.
Right.
So Sam, you want to kick us off?
Sure. And let me just reiterate, it's not laugh out loud funny, but they're
Yeah.
like maybe a chuckle. Okay. So to be clear,
Or the humor is the topic of it. Like some
Yes.
of them are in here that they're not really funny, but they're about funny or laughter.
yeah.
Like this first one.
Like the first one. It's from Genesis 18, verse 12. And I'll just read it and we'll go with it. It's about Sarah and Abram, and God has just appeared to them and said, hey, by the way, I'm going to give you a kid, right? And they're old. And so verse 12 says, so Sarah laughed to herself, saying, after I've grown old and my husband is old, shall I be fruitful? Yahweh said to Abraham, why did Sarah laugh and say, shall I indeed bear a child now that I'm old? Is anything too wonderful for Yahweh? At the set time, I'll return to you in due season, and Sarah will have a son. But Sarah denied, saying, I did not laugh, for she was afraid. He said, yes, you did laugh. Now, for me, I do laugh at this for
funny on a
many
couple
reasons.
levels.
Right? On the one hand, like, Sarah thought it was a joke, seemingly, because it says that she laughed, right? Like, God says, I'm going to give you a child. Like, no, I'm 7, I forget how old she was, 60, 70 years old. Like, that's not going to happen. That's never happened in the in all of humanity is not going to happen now. And so she's like, he's telling a joke, he's being silly. Yahweh's ever been silly,
Right,
But, and so she's like, no, it's not going to happen. But the hilarious thing is, God hears her and says, oh, wait a minute. You think I'm joking? I'm not joking. And then Sarah denies, like, oh, no, I didn't say that. Like, really? You're going to tell God what he heard or didn't hear? Like, that's crazy. But anyway, so this whole episode is like, she thinks it's a joke, then she realizes it's real and gets caught mocking God may not be the right phrase, but like kind of laughing at God, and God calls her out. She's like, no, I never would do that.
Yeah, and that's funny when you watch that happen to someone else. Like someone else gets busted in a lie, and they're busted, but they don't know they're busted, and they're trying to get out of it. It probably wasn't funny for her.
No, by no means was it.
But like the
her.
audience would appreciate that.
Yes.
Oh man, that's rough, but that's funny.
Like we've all been there, like backtracking quickly. Like, well, what I meant was like, nope. What you meant was what you meant. And
And you got to own it in the moment. Like if you try to backtrack, you're only making it work. Sometimes you just got to own it and go, yep, I really screwed up. Apparently Sarah wasn't willing to do that.
No.
And how does this tie into the whole naming thing?
Oh, so Isaac, which is the son that comes from it, has to do with like playfulness and laughter, and it's an interesting word in Hebrew. And so, of course, the kid's gonna be named like you laughed, something like that. Which, like, well, poor kid, but it refers to this whole episode of where he even came from. So,
well, every time she calls his name, it's gonna be a reminder. It's like, dang.
Of
God
that thing,
called
she
me
got
out. I
busted.
I caught you. Yep.
Yeah,
And every time she says her son's name, it reminds her when God busted her.
Yeah.
exactly.
She lied to God, and he caught her.
So
That in itself is funny as well.
also fun.
Another layer, and that would have been funny, I think, for the audience, right? I mean, the naming
sure.
of
Yeah,
him,
without a doubt.
they had to see that as significant.
The good news for her is Isaac is a very minimal character in the actual story. We basically jump from Abraham to Jacob, but Isaac gets a little bit. Yeah.
All right, I guess we're gonna just go.
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah, sounds good. So the next one, and this is a lot of this Old Testament
Oh,
stuff.
this is
not,
sad right here.
Yeah, it's not something
Sad?
I actually came
Well,
up with, but
Okay. Well, good. Get it out there.
so this is in Genesis 29. It's the story of Jacob wanting to marry Rachel, and Rachel's dad's like, "Yeah, come work for me for 7 years, and then you can have my daughter Rachel." He's like, "I love her. I'll do it. I'll work for you for 7 years." So he works for Laban for 7 years. Verse 21. Jacob said to Laban, "Give me my wife so that I may go into her, for my time is completed." So Laban gathered together all the people of the place, made a feast, but in the evening he took his daughter Leah and brought her to Jacob. And he went into her. Laban gave his maid Zilpah to the daughter Leah, blah, blah, blah. When morning came, it was Leah. And Jacob said to Laban, "What is this you have done to me? Did I not serve you for Rachel? Why have you deceived me and given me... why have you deceived me?" Laban said, "That's not the way we do in our country, giving the younger before the firstborn." And so, switcheroo on Jacob there. But what's funny is he doesn't realize it till morning. It's like, wow, I guess it was
So
really
go into
dark.
her is the euphemism for sexual intercourse.
Sex, yep.
So
Yeah, and so in the morning it's like, oh, I slept with the wrong girl. But somehow he wasn't able to figure that out until morning. I don't know if it was the darkness of the tent or how drunk he was or whatever.
yeah, there's a combination of factors.
Yes.
There's no electricity, and they've been feasting.
And I would say on top of that, there's a good chance she was wearing a full burqa.
Yep.
Oh, right, yeah.
So it's dark by the time she takes off the burqa. He can't see anything different other than her eyes, which were weak apparently. And so he doesn't know the difference.
Yeah. And part of the tragedy of this is that he worked for 7 years, and to have his, now father-in-law pull the switcheroo on him and not give him the girl that he had been working for, I think I'd have been pretty angry. Not offense to Leah or anything like that. I'm not trying to talk her down or anything.
Well, that's the not funny part. Poor Leah.
exactly
Right. Now I will say this is the funniest line, one of the funniest lines of the Bible. In the morning, he woke up and it was Leah. It's funny because think of the worst possible outcome, and that's what happened. But poor Leah, and then the rest of the story, she's unloved, and God has to actually give her blessings because she's unloved and second place all the time and all the rest. But anyway, so that line is funny, but her circumstance, I feel bad for Leah.
It was Leah.
And I think it's funnier in Hebrew in a different way than it's funny in English, because it's in Hebrew it's just kind of, he wakes up in the morning and behold, Leah.
Yeah.
And it like almost switches from his perspective.
Yeah.
Like his eyes wake up and boom, Leah. And to me, that's hysterical.
Yeah, I mean, it's a classic like rom-com situation, right?
Oh, right,
Where
yeah.
I mean, it could have been any number of movies could have been made
Yep.
with this sort of scene in it. We're like, oh no, this was not who I went to bed thinking it was, and now I'm stuck with this thing, or was.
No,
Oh my
no.
gosh, poor Leah.
By thing I mean marriage. By person I mean Leah.
There are versions of weak eyes that make it a pretty thing.
Sure. I've been I mean,
Easy on the eyes.
everyone tries to explain away what the weak eyes means. Does it mean she's ugly? Does it mean something else? I've heard a couple of different scholarly presentations on that. Either way, the point is Jacob was less interested in her than he was in Rachel.
Yeah, no matter how you slice
And
it.
he wakes up and behold,
And that's who he got.
Leah. Oh, man.
Poor Leah.
It's a funny line.
Okay, so just one more in Genesis. This time we're in chapter 31, beginning in verse 19. And this is kind of at the back end
weird.
of that story,
Yes.
right? And so, so Jacob works for his father-in-law for an additional 7 years for Leah and Rachel, right? Now he's up to 14. And then, like, he has to work another almost 7 years because by the time he's done working, all the profits went to Laban. He doesn't have any money. Like, now he's got to work 7 years so that he can leave and move away from his father-in-law's territory and, like, go back to the land where he was supposed to inherit the promise. So, he's trying to get out, and the father-in-law keeps dragging him, right? And finally, he just busted out of here. Okay, ladies, sons, we're out, we're going. And then eventually Laban kind of catches up with him. And so I'm going to begin in a little bit before then, actually. So Laban had gone to shear his sheep, and this is when he makes the discovery, his kids, grandkids, gone. And Rachel had stolen her father's household gods. And Jacob deceived Laban, the Aramean, in that he did not tell him that he intended to flee. So he fled with all that he had. Starting out, he crossed the Euphrates and set his face toward the hill country of Gilead. On the third day, Laban was told that Jacob had fled. So he took his kinfolk with him and pursued him for 7 days until he caught up with him in the hill country of Gilead. But God came to Laban the Aramean in a dream by night and said to him, "Take heed that you say not a word to Jacob, either good or bad." Laban overtook Jacob. Now Jacob had pitched his tent in the hill country, and Laban with his kinsfolk camped in the hill country of Gilead. Laban said to Jacob, "What have you done? You have deceived me," which is ironic after the last story. You have deceived
Correct.
me.
Yes.
Anyway, okay. So, and carried away my daughters like captives of the sword. Why did you flee secretly and deceive me and not tell me? I would have sent you away with mirth and songs and tambourine and lyre.
No one believes that.
Yeah. Liar.
Yeah. Liar being the youth, right?
And why did you not permit me to kiss my sons and my daughters farewell? What you have done is foolish. It is in my power to do you harm, but the God of your father spoke to me last night, saying, "Take heed that you speak to Jacob neither good nor bad." Not like you said anything bad up to this point.
Yeah, exactly.
I
Like
know, were you paying attention?
a little gaslighting. It's fine.
Even though you had to go because you longed greatly for your father's house, why did you steal my gods? So now we're getting to the funny part of the story. Jacob answered Laban, "Because I was afraid, for I thought that you would take your daughters from me by force. But anyone with whom you find your gods shall not live. In the presence of our kinsfolk, point out what I have that is yours, and take it." Now Jacob did not know that Rachel had stolen the gods.
Again, this is a classic like storyline of like a rom-com where like I did nothing wrong. Meanwhile, like the offense is right behind you, but you can't
His
see it.
favorite wife
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly right, yeah.
is guilty. And so this could have turned in a number of different ways
Yes.
at this point. But so Laban went into Jacob's tent and into Leah's tent, into the tent of the two maids, but he did not find them. And he went out of Leah's tent and entered Rachel's. Now Rachel had taken the household gods and put them in the camel's saddle and sat on them. Laban felt all about in the tent, but did not find them. And she said to her father, let not my lord be angry that I cannot rise before you, for the way of a woman is upon me." So he searched, but did not find the household gods.
The way of a woman.
The reason we're laughing is because she's using her menstrual cycle, her period, as an excuse why I can't get off the horse or the
Saddle.
mule or the camel or whatever to greet you because, I'm on my period. You're like, okay, I'll search everywhere else. Meanwhile, she's sitting on the actual things that she stole.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and it's kind of this is, and I don't know if this would have been read this way, but the person who this was a special request from one of our listeners. She pointed out that this is the first instance, the first episode where a god, a false god, or like an idol is involved, right? And so the first introduction of an idol as an item. And you can say something about the way the creation story is told, presumes a polemic.
Sure.
But the first time, an idol shows up in the story, it's being sat upon by a woman, and in a way that would make it unclean in every conceivable way possible for a Jewish reader.
So there's got to be something funny about that to an Israelite who's hearing the story read going, yeah, that God's totally unclean. Just for them, there's a certain hilarity to the way it's presented.
Yeah, and we're going to see as we continue reading the passages that mocking idols is something the Old Testament likes to do.
Oh, big time.
And some of the funniest passages are idol mockings. And this is perhaps the first and earliest idol mocking, but it's not in a kind of prophetic oracle. It's by, this is, just calling it, this is Laban's God, and his daughter is sitting on it, right?
Yes.
What does that mean for, your God can be sat upon?
Yeah.
Right.
What kind of God is it? What use is this God to you if it can be sat upon and made unclean so easily? It really is a strong mockery against her.
When you get into Torah,
and power.
it's like the mercy seat, right? Which is a box in the Holy of Holies is, it's a sacred item that no one can go in to see except the high priest, and only once a year, and after taking a bath, and after putting on holy robes, and after making sacrifices, and filling the room with incense, right? And so there's a smoke screen, and he doesn't sit on it.
Right. That's exactly. It's not a real seat.
Yeah.
And even you want to profane it, where are you going to sit? It's not set up well to sit on. Right.
Yeah. So the contrast of how holy God's presence is and protected, and yet the first introduction of an idol in the Bible story is being sat upon by Jacob's favorite wife.
Yeah, when your God is reduced to a small figurine, so much can go wrong, right? Okay, this is a whole aside. I can distinctly remember having a manger stable scene at Christmas and getting my G.I. Joes and playing with it. Right. That's what happens because when it's reduced to that, but God isn't. And that's the whole point of the biblical narratives over and over again. We can minimize your deities because you believe in this thing. Well, God can't be reduced to that. So.
And this story, and this is the way the Old Testament narratives are. They are multi-layered and funny at so many levels. It's funny that he's saying, you deceived me.
Right.
After he was the one who deceived him to give him the wife. It's funny that his daughter is faking him out and using this cover. It's funny that this is how an idol enters into the Bible story. Great stuff.
Yeah. Well, we get through Genesis and we enter into Exodus, and the humor, I think, continues. And
I hope it does.
it ends in Genesis. The rest of the Bible is boring.
No more funny stuff.
And
For the sake of our series, I hope it does.
It's over. I hope you enjoyed it. But the whole story of Moses meeting with Pharaoh and the plagues is intended to be at least mockery, if not funny. And part of it's because, and lots of studies have been done where, are they mocking is every plague mocking an Egyptian deity, or just some of them? You can do research on that. It's not very clear. But at least some of them are mocking Egyptian deities because to show that Yahweh is more powerful than they are. And so the whole story of Moses goes to Pharaoh, says, let my people go. He says no. He says, it's going to be bad for you. He says, I don't care. And then it happens. And then Pharaoh comes with his tail between his legs saying, my bad, please stop this, right? This happens 10 times, basically, or 9.5 times. And that in itself is funny. And on top of that, it begins where as the plagues go along, you see that the Egyptian magicians regularly are like, oh, that's nothing. We can do that. So the whole Nile turns to blood, and they're like, No big deal. Give me some water. I'll turn it to blood too. Like
Right. I can do this cup.
our people have no water, but make sure you bring more blood into the scene, right? That in itself is funny, right?
Yep,
Stuff
yep.
like that. And over, they're like, oh, the Egyptian magicians do the same thing until eventually they can't do the same thing. But very specifically, the second plague is the frogs. And so, Moses is like, I mean, let us go or else. And he's like, forget you. And then all of a sudden there's frogs everywhere. Now, people think of frogs as cute and cuddly-ish until they're everywhere.
Right, yeah.
Underfoot, you open up your bag, frogs fly out. You open up your oven, frogs fly. I mean, there's frogs everywhere, right? And there's like, this is too much. And so, but there's this interesting thing. It's kind of like, as readers, we're often not careful readers of the Bible. We just kind of like read the content and move on. But you might miss it if you don't read closely. And this is in chapter 8 of Exodus, I'll start in verse 8. Pharaoh called Moses and Aaron and said, pray to Yahweh to take away the frogs from me and my people, and I will let the people go to sacrifice to Yahweh. That's his standard response, like, our bad, like, take care of this. Verse 9, Moses said to Pharaoh, sorry, I laughed before I even say it. Kindly tell me when I am to pray for you and your officials and for your people, that the frogs may be removed from you and your houses and be left only in the Nile. Now, if you're overrun with frogs, what's the answer? Right now.
Yeah, let's get rid of them now.
Exactly,
Right?
Exactly.
But no, verse 10. And Pharaoh said, tomorrow. In what world is that?
Let's call it a day.
Yeah.
It's been full.
You've had a lot
of banter.
Yeah. You've had a lot going on, Moses. I'll give you till tomorrow to get it done. And then, of course, Moses says, sure, as you say, I'm going to do it tomorrow, and then you'll know there's only one God, it's Yahweh. It just, the stupidity of Pharaoh, the stupidity of his magicians, and this is a common theme throughout the Bible. Whenever there's an opponent, they are often framed as just dumb. Like, in what world is that the right answer? It's not. And yet, over and over, they frame them in this way because to show you, like, they just don't get it. They don't get what God is doing. They don't get what's right. And so they are often castigated as not being as intelligent as the Israelite hero.
Yeah. Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
I am dying here.
I mean, I haven't
Can you help me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can help me. When do you want me to help me? How about 24 hours?
I mean, I got some frog legs I need to deal with first, and then
Right,
when we have
right,
that dinner, we'll be fine.
Yeah, what did he want that time for?
Yeah, I don't know.
Exactly. Fantastic. We've got one other story from the book of Exodus.
Oh,
this
boy, this
from,
is a good one.
Yeah, this is Exodus 32. This is one I think that like some people might recognize this a little bit more than some of the other ones we're going to bring up because it's a great line in the story. And so Exodus 32 is the golden calf incident where Moses is up on the mountain and he's up there for a long time and the people are getting restless and they want a god. And so they go to Aaron and they say, make gods for us who shall go before us. As for this Moses, this man who brought us up out of Egypt, we don't even know what's become of him. And so they demand a god. Aaron consents. He says, take off your gold rings, give me all this stuff, and I'll make you a god. Makes him a golden calf. And so...
Can we be clear, though? Verse 4
4
says, yes.
Yeah, you got to read this.
Read verse 4.
Okay, I'll read verse 4.
These are all to read.
Yep, all right. Sorry, I scrolled by it, so I'm reading from my phone, so I go back.
Oh.
It says, he took the gold from them, formed it in a mold, and cast an image of a calf. And they said, these are your gods, O Israel, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt. So very specific that he made the god.
He asked for the ingredients, and he put them into the form.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep. Important aspect because when Moses comes back down, he sees everything that's going on. He's angry. He calls the people out. And so it says in verse 21, Moses said to Aaron, what did this people do to you that you have brought so great a sin upon them? And Aaron said, do not let the anger of my Lord burn hot. You know the people, that they are bent on evil. They said to me, make us gods who shall go before us. As for this Moses, the man who brought us out of the land of Egypt, we don't know what's happened to him.
Up till now, that's pretty true.
Fair enough.
I mean, that's an accurate account. Moses should recognize these people can really whine and complain and put pressure on their leaders.
Shouldn't leave them for too long.
Oh, my gosh. And that's just a repeating story of the Exodus narrative. Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers. Verse 24. Aaron continues on. So I said to them, whoever has gold, take it off. So they gave it to me. And I threw it into the fire, and out came this calf. Like, I didn't make it. I just threw it in the fire, and it just popped out.
Fire made it.
The
He actually
calf
made a
popped
case
out.
for the deity of the calf,
In a sense, right?
right?
Yeah.
Like fires don't make calves.
Right. And so some deity corroborated with this process to create a calf that just spontaneously emerged from the fire.
It's either he's recognizing power behind the gods, or he's actually blaming God for it.
Right.
God's the one who made a calf come out. I just threw stuff in the fire.
Don't blame me for
Randomly.
this.
It's like, like a kid sitting with a ball in his hand next to a broken window. And the parent says, what happened? Like, I don't know. Like, wait, of course you know what happened. You threw a ball and it broke a window. And he's like, I just don't know. It's weird things happen, I was, had some gold and I tripped and I fell and it ran to the fire. Like, I don't know. It's just random. It's God's weird.
Well, and it does strike me a little bit of the Sarah incident where, she laughs, she's called out for it, and she tries to backtrack and do everything she can to not accept responsibility. And now Aaron's doing the same thing. I didn't do anything. It just popped out. And so he wants to accept no responsibility. The text makes it very clear, and I'm glad you guys, you pointed it out, that he did fashion
Clearly
this God,
stated as
made the
doing it,
mold, did everything. It didn't just pop out of the fire.
Yeah. So
Nice
funny
try
scene.
there, Aaron.
And again, Moses doesn't really say anything to him about it, but the reader knows.
Yes.
And so this is meant to be funny for the reader.
Yeah.
In real time, I'm not sure it would have been all that funny.
No. Well, and I mean, we might as well say it now. Like a lot of these stories, that's what's happening. Like in the heat of the moment, it's a terrible incident, but they're being crafted and shaped in such a way as there's to bring humor into that fact. Yeah.
Well, tragedy plus time makes humor. So you got to give it a little time before it's funny, because it's not going to be funny in the moment.
Yeah. So this next passage, I don't think is overtly funny.
I was prepping you. This stinks, but it's
Well, it's funny depending upon your
Yes.
theory of authorship.
Right.
agreed.
And so I don't know if it's something funny going on in the Bible or something funny that goes on in biblical studies.
I'm really glad it's here. I'll say
All right,
that.
okay. So I'm actually going to go back a little bit to give context. Chapter 12 of Numbers.
No one reads Numbers, so tell us more.
While they were at Hazeroth, Miriam and Aaron, these are the siblings of Moses, spoke against Moses because of the Cushite woman whom he had married. For he had indeed married a Cushite woman.
Mm-hmm.
So, their beef is not,
It's not uncalled for.
it's not a false accusation. And they said, has the Lord spoken only through Moses? Has he not spoken through us also? And the Lord heard it. I love that.
Yeah.
And the Lord heard it.
He's not deaf. Okay.
Yep. And now verse 3. Now the man Moses was very humble, more so than anyone else on the face of the earth. I'm going to stop there.
That seems reasonable.
So what's funny here is a lot of people, maybe the majority of people reading the Bible, maybe not the majority of Bible scholars, but assume that Moses wrote every verse of Genesis through Deuteronomy, the Pentateuch, right? Because of it's called the Book of Moses or the Law of Moses, and Moses has a foundational connection to everything in these books, right? And so they assume that he wrote all the lines. And so, Sam,
Yes.
why are you glad this is included?
Because there's lots of reasons to believe he didn't read every line, or didn't write every line, rather.
Yeah.
And so this would be one of them. Because how can you be the most humble person if you tell everyone you're the most humble person? It just doesn't make sense.
And Moses, under divine inspiration, wrote, and Moses was the humblest man to ever walk the face of the earth.
So humble.
Yeah.
No one is more humble than me.
Yeah, which of course doesn't work so well. And this is one of the passages we use to say perhaps there were other hands authoring the Pentateuch, right?
Like the account of his death, for instance, and what happened to him after he died that no one knew.
Right, would be tough
Which presumably he would have known.
Yes. Well, and
Well,
we get
his
people-
dead self, if he was still writing.
Yes. Right. And so, like, people will do plenty of gymnastics to make it work. I just want to say why. Just assume someone else probably wrote it about him,
Yeah.
right? And this is one of those examples. But again, it's only funny if you assume that he was the author. If he's not, then it's just another thing saying, okay, we're giving him props for he could have. And the point of the passage is to say, and he didn't blow up at him and say, you all don't know what you're talking about. I'm God's guy. Shut up and get in line, right? He didn't do that.
Right.
He was the humble guy, right? And so that's important for them to say, but he would not have said that about himself.
Correct. So So I don't. So the funny part is people's theories of authorship
Yes.
and the gymnastics that they do to try to say this was Moses,
Right.
Right.
which most end up coming up with the theory that okay, so not everything is just 99.99%, and
Right.
this isn't the .01.
Correct. Sure. If that makes you feel better, then so be it. All right, we're still in Numbers. If you haven't read Numbers lately, you should. It's a lot of good stuff. But we're jumping to 22, and this is one of those stories. I think a lot of people at least kind of know that it exists, and it it allows preachers to say words like ass in sermons because it talks about a donkey. But it's this idea of there's a foreign nation who the Moabites who really they're scared of the Israelites. They see what's on the horizon. They want to do anything they can to kind of curse these people and make them the Israelites not be successful. So they bring in this wandering prophetic guy to say, hey, what's the chance you can interact with the deity and call down a curse upon them? They're like, no problem. How much does it pay? Right? And so this idea, he's kind of like on his way. And so I'll just read it because it's a great little story. And I think a lot of people kind of know the story exists but have not read it. And you should read it because it's good. Verse 22 of chapter 22 in Numbers says this: God's anger was kindled because he was going, and he meaning Balaam, and the angel of Yahweh took his stand in the road as his adversary, his Satan. Now he was riding with his donkey, and his two servants were with him. The donkey saw the angel of Yahweh standing in the road with a drawn sword in his hand. So the donkey turned and went into the field, and Balaam struck the donkey to turn it back onto the road. Now, I'll stop there. I don't want to just really bring this scene. Like, Balaam, this guy who apparently can interact with deities.
A seer, one might say.
Yes, a seer can't see that Yahweh is in the middle of the road, or an angel of Yahweh technically, with a sword going to kill him, right? The donkey can see it. The seer can't see it. That's that's the irony. That's what makes it funny, right? And so he's mad. He's assuming the donkey's going to donkey, and he's just being stupid and stubborn. And so he hits the donkey. Okay.
So far, pretty funny.
Yeah, in itself. Verse 24. The angel of Yahweh stood in a narrow path between the vineyards with a wall on either side. So Balaam's gone down what do they call it in like a death chute or something? I don't know. When the donkey saw the angel of Yahweh, it scraped against the wall and scraped Balaam's foot against the wall, so he struck it again. Like, you stupid donkey, keep it in the path.
Stay in the middle.
Yeah. How dumb are you? Then the angel,
He doesn't have like covered shoes. He's wearing sandals, so I mean he's probably bloody.
if anything, yes.
Scraping
It
against the
probably
wall,
hurt.
it probably
I'll
hurt.
admit that it hurt.
In Balaam's defense.
Why are we defending Balaam? But okay. Then the angel of Yahweh went ahead and stood in a place where there was no way to turn either right or left. When the donkey saw the angel of Yahweh, it lay down under Balaam, and Balaam's anger was kindled, and he struck the donkey with his staff. So again, the donkey's like, if I keep going, I'm dead. Everyone's dead.
3 strikes.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm just going to sit down. And of course, again, if you've ever dealt with donkeys, from what I hear, not a regular donkey wrangler, but they're stubborn and they do stuff like this all the time, and you just got to deal with it. Then, verse 28, Yahweh opened the mouth of the donkey, and it said to Balaam, "What have I done to you that you have struck me these 3 times?" So a donkey starts talking, right, and says these words. Now, we as modern readers are like, my response is, what is going on right now?
Talking donkey.
Why is a donkey talking?
Right.
That's our response, not Balaam. Verse 29, Balaam said to his donkey, "Because you made a fool of me." I wish, sorry. I mean, really, like, that's your response? A donkey talking is goes, "Ooh, you made a fool of me, you dumb donkey."
Let me explain.
Yeah. Oh, boy. He says, "I wish I had a sword in my hand. I would kill you right now."
Not make money because you got to talk
Right.
your donkey.
I know, right?
So many
Shrek,
better
come on.
options.
Yeah.
So many better options than killing the donkey. But
He must have been furious.
the donkey said to Balaam, "Am I not your donkey, which you have ridden all your life to this day? And have I not been in the habit of treating you in this way?" He said, "No." Oh,
The
man.
donkey's talking him in off the ledge is what's happening here.
Right. And of course, the point of the story is the wisest person in the group is a donkey.
Yeah.
not the seer, not the man, quote, man of God type person who's supposed to be able to see these things. It's a donkey. And I mean, the whole thing is just intended to be humorous, to really to impugn this fake person
Right,
who's he's for hire. He's happy to try to manipulate things for whoever has the most money, and it's just a great story of a talking donkey.
Yeah, and it's also funny at the level of like Balaam did ask God's permission, right? Can I go? Right, and God's like, yeah, you can go. Just don't say more than I tell you what to say, right?
Right.
And so he's going, and then God's going to kill him. Right?
Yeah.
And so this is kind of wrapped up in also like, why is God going after Balaam, right? Because up to this point, his character, besides the fact that he's a prophet for hire, which is sketchy,
Right. Yeah.
but like besides that, he's kind of like consulted the Lord, heard a word, gone obediently, followed the rules, and all of a sudden this all falls apart. And it's, he's made to look like a fool, not in the story world, but really to the readers,
Yeah.
right? He's the one who looks like a fool.
Go ahead.
No, I think that's I thought I had a thought, but I don't have a thought.
I thought I had a
thought I
thought.
had a
but
thought.
then I didn't have a
I
thought.
thought I'd remember my thought.
Yeah. It's a great story, and again, I think most people know that there's a talking donkey in the Bible, but this is the actual story. It's important to know the context and all that goes behind it. But
Right.
Turns out the donkey saves his life,
yeah, the donkey that has been faithful.
that he's willing to drive a sword into
Yes.
after knowing he can talk.
Well, so okay, it reminds me of. So I'm not a huge Game of Thrones fan, but there's a scene in Game of Thrones where the Mountain, which is this huge dude, is doing a jousting competition, and he loses, and he takes out a sword and just kills his horse. Like it's the horse's fault that he lost. It's the same sort of thing. Like it's the donkey's fault that he's not, that he is almost dead. Yeah.
That's a good villain trope in a lot of movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, the more powerful villain like strikes one of the minions down for no good reason.
Yep.
For real.
Poor Uzzah. Oh wait, it's
Well, moving on from the Pentateuch here,
Okay.
we can jump ahead to Judges.
This one's so good.
Yeah. Judges chapter 3 is the story of Ehud, great character, the left-handed man.
Ambidextrous.
Yep. And so, as we see over and over in Judges, Israel is not faithful to God. God lets their enemies take over. Israel cries out, "We're so bad, come save us." And God does, by the way. God is always faithful despite their faithlessness. And so he raises up Ehud, a left-handed man, goes to Eglon, the king of Moab, and because he's left-handed, he's got a sword on the opposite side. So I guess when they patted him down, they only patted down like one side, and then didn't realize he had a sword in there. He brings a tribute, but it's like, "Hey, I got a message for you." And the king's like, "Sweet." He's like, "I got to just tell you." And he's like, "Get out of here. This guy's got a message for me." And so he has him come near. And so Ehud says, "I have a message from God." And verse 21, it says, "Ehud reached with his left hand, took out the sword from his right thigh, and thrust it into Eglon's belly. The hilt also went in after the blade, and the fat closed over the blade."
Chased it in.
Yep, for he could not draw the sword out of the belly. And my translation says dirt came out. Might have been the contents of his bowels. Or
Yeah, not might have been. It was.
Yeah.
He definitely pooped himself.
And so Ehud went out into the vestibule, closed the door of the chamber, and locked it. So the first part that's really hilarious is, stabbing him and it's going in so bad that the fat just closes around the sword and he can't pull it out. And I always envision this story originally being told around a campfire, because you got these heroes. And so the way these stories are preserved are these small communities who are telling these stories of the heroes. And, you've got the bard who's telling the story. And you've got the kids down front, the parents behind. And he says, "And the fat closed around the sword." Now the little kids are like,
up my
"Ew!"
hand.
The parents are belly laughing.
Yep. Oh, they're laughing, but they're like so gross. And so I can just see why that's such a big part of this story.
And it catches him in the large intestines.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of funny.
Sure
Like, it
does.
doesn't catch an artery and start spurting all over the place.
Yeah.
It catches him in a place that refuse is spewing out. And if you're trying to picture this, like, it's so tight around the sword that he can barely get his hand out, right? Because he can't get the sword out,
Right.
right? And then, but out comes the dirt.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Well, I mean, sorry, I can't help be a nerd, but like on a scholarly level, like weight and fat was glory, right?
Oh, right,
Yes.
yeah.
Because
Yes.
that means you're blessed by the guest. So
Yeah.
he's like apparently supersized blessed by the deities, and yet that is part of the problem with this whole thing. Like, yeah, you think you're blessed, but actually not. Like the sword can't even come out of you. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. And so we still got some more hilarity coming after that, because after Ehud was gone, the servants came. When they saw the doors of the roof chambers were locked, they thought, he must be relieving himself in the cool chamber. So they waited until they were embarrassed. When he still not opened the doors of the roof chamber, they took the key, opened them, and there was their Lord lying dead on the floor.
You okay in there, fella? Did you fall in? No, he did not.
He must be bearing down really hard because he just can't
Oh my
answer us.
gosh.
So they're on the roof. The roof chambers is like
I mean, that's what it says. The cool chamber, which, yeah. I mean, I guess I'd have to go back and look at the archaeology or architecture from the time, but it does seem like the roof would be cool, but nonetheless.
But
Maybe it's getting a wind.
but a
and-
risky place to go to the bathroom.
I would think so.
Usually want to go closer to the dirt,
You'd think so.
not where gravity can take things down
Well-
to the
Well, I'm
bed
sure there's a
chamber.
Maybe a
pod.
chamber
Or the
pod.
living chamber.
Yeah,
Or-
probably some sort of chamber pod they had to deal
'Cause,
with.
you know, the lowest level servant is what has to carry it out and dump it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, it's up on the roof, so the wind's going to blow
Sure.
the horrible odors away.
But I just love those. Like, they're so embarrassed. Like, he's been in there a long time. You think he's okay? Like, I don't know.
I don't know. He's
Yeah,
really,
that's the conversation
Yes,
that must
yes.
have been happening. Is man,
I mean, he is really fat.
At what
you know?
point do we
does
check on him?
go, Yeah, he does tend to take his time.
Yeah. He's a long pooper, so
guy
How many
left
magazines did he take in with him this time?
oh man.
So their embarrassment is a big part of the humor
Yes,
of the story,
indeed.
Yep.
and of course, it's the plot dimension that allows the hero to get away with it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's got time to escape, get some reinforcements, and come back and take care of business.
Yeah, great story.
And again, if you're mocking a nation that has been attacking you and and all these things against you, you make out their leader to be this just like overweight, awful person. Like, of course, that's funny to them as well.
Where the overweight is not an asset but a liability,
Correct.
which is very subversive from an Israelite
Yep.
standpoint. Like
Yep.
they don't portray their leaders as big and fat,
No.
and it's the glory of other leaders that they're big and fat.
At least not the good leaders. There's at least one fat man in Eli, the priest.
Well, it's
Yeah,
true.
that's right.
But again, he's
Not a king.
impugned for that. Anyway,
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's
right.
the whole point.
That's
yeah.
part of the reason he dies. But anyway.
Right.
Right. His weight tips the chair and he
Yeah,
breaks his neck.
breaks his
Right.
neck.
It's like, no, don't lean back. Don't lean back.
Yeah.
Ah!
Stop.
You don't have the build for that.
My God. Or the stool was not built for that. Either way.
Either way, yeah. This whole thing's going to be bad.
Last thing, Ron read left-handed. You said ambidextrous.
Ambidextrous,
You want to nerd out on that?
Sure. He was anyway. This idea that he was left-handed, he was a Benjamite, and there are other passages that talk about that Benjamites were actually good at sling throwing from either hand. So likely he was not left-handed, but he could use either hand as well. Most people were right-handed, and so you would put your sword on your left side to draw a cross. He probably put his sword on his right side, so that even if you said if they patted him down or just didn't notice a bulge on the proper side, they just didn't even take notice. And so, as I said, Benjamites were renowned fighters for being ambidextrous.
Got it.
Yeah, so we would say left-handed. When we say left-hand, we say left hand prominent.
Yes.
But this is they've acquired the ability to be skilled with the left hand as well. And since Benjamites are associated that elsewhere, that's probably what's going on here.
Correct.
All right.
Sorry to ruin all the Sunday school lessons you ever learned, people.
Not a big thing. That's why people listen to us.
Well, I mean, why that gets brought up is because a lot of the other judges are atypical, right?
Yeah.
They're, son of a disreputable woman
Mhm.
or a woman or, the lowest of the clans. Like, so they want to turn this out to be a liability so it fits
Yeah.
the trope.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
But
Or from a barren woman or what have you. Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
So, all right, that's enough for today.
Whew.
I think we got through, and I thought there was some genuine humor in there.
I agree.
Don't disagree, especially Ron's comments. Just kidding.
Always good for
Got
some
'em.
mockery in there.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us in this midsummer
Night's Dream.
episode of the After Class podcast. After Class because
The best conversations happen.
After class.
Thank you again for listening to this episode of the After Class Podcast. ACP is hosted by Sam Long, John Nugent, and Ron Peters. Social media pictures and descriptions are provided by Darren Harris. Audio mixing and editing is done by Drew Nyquist. If you've enjoyed this episode of ACP, you might also enjoy GLCC's Master of Arts in Practical Theology degree. In this 36-hour program, you will receive first-rate biblical and theological instruction from John, Ron, Sam, and several of their colleagues at Great Lakes Christian College. To learn more about this program, visit glcc.edu. Get practical and go deep at GLCC.